Oh, welcome everybody. Oh, we are excited to have you here for our first webinar in 2025. I want to introduce myself. If you're at the CEC webinar, you're in the right spot. I'm Jackie Steinhauer. I am a community development specialist for MU Extension. I work in Northwest Missouri, the very far corner of the state. And I am excited to be here with you today. We had an excellent webinar series in 2024 for our Connecting Entrepreneurial Communities Conference. And we decided to keep it going in 2025. So I'm excited for a fun 2025 webinar series. I do want to take just a minute before we get started to introduce our planning team. If they're not on the webinar, I'm sure you'll meet them at some point, but if you are on the webinar, just wave your hand at everybody. First, I want to introduce Lisa Robinson. And Lisa is a regional economic development specialist with MU Extension based in Jasper County. Dr. Annette Kendall, probably a lot of you know her as our coordinator for the conference last year. She is an assistant extension professor with MU Extension on campus in Columbia. She'll be joining us a little bit later today. Brianna Kleithermes, I don't see her on the call yet, but she is a business development specialist with the SBDC and the Fulton Chamber of Commerce. And Rebecca Tenholzen, who's a community and economic development planner with Green Hills Regional Planning Commission based in Trenton. And we also have a wonderful support team from our state conference team, and that's Dina Dothag, and she's a community development and extension engagement specialist from St. Charles, Missouri. And our new conference lead coordinator is on the call today. And so if you haven't met her yet, you will, Dr. Ashley Allen Brown, and she is from Camden County. So we are super excited for our conference this year. It is going to be September 30th through October 2nd, a little bit later than years before. And it's going to be in Excelsior Springs. And we could not be more excited to be in Excelsior Springs. We have been working with their lead team on a lot of great speakers, and our hosts have so many exciting things that they are planning to show and share when we all visit them in September. And we want you to make sure that you look for registration at the end of March, early April is our goal to get that out. And we hope you'll join us then. And speaking of Excelsior Springs, we wanted to kick off our 2025 webinar with them. So with us today, we have Melinda Mehaffy, and I'm going to just pause here just a second so that I can spotlight them so that you know who I'm talking about. They'll be bigger on our screen. So we have Melinda Mehaffy, and she is with the City of Excelsior Springs. We have Lyndsey Baxter with the Downtown Excelsior Partnership. And we have Brian Rice with the Excelsior Springs Chamber of Commerce. So Excelsior Springs is an exemplar of collaboration between these three organizations. They are all working together to build a thriving and vibrant downtown. One of the reasons that we've selected them as our host in 2025. They've built a strong partnership that works to bring innovation and new ideas to the table. And today, they are going to help us answer our theme question of the year. So how did you do that? So Brian, Melinda, and Lyndsey, the floor is yours, and we are excited to learn from you today.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And I would tell you that I think we are as excited to have MU Extension and the Connecting Entrepreneurial Communities in our community as you are to be here. So we look forward to having everybody here in September, October, and are going to bring you an excellent program for that. So wanted just to kind of give you a little bit of information. I'm the Economic Development Director for the city, and I have been here for 7 years. I was really fortunate to come into the community and get to work with these two individuals who, while Brian I worked with before in a different role, they've both been here far longer than me. As a matter of fact, both hometown individuals. And they have done an amazing job. And a part of what makes this work is that you have amazing people to work with.
I am with the Downtown Excelsior Partnership, and that's a lot of words for a Main Street America program. So if any of you have a Missouri Main Street organization in your community, that is what we do here. We are proud to call ourselves, I believe, one of 9 now in the state of Missouri that is accredited.
And I'm Brian Rice. I'm a lifelong resident of Excelsior Springs. And my history, I've been with the Chamber of Commerce as its president now I'm starting my 3rd year in this role. But I'm a lifelong resident of Excelsior Springs. And my career before this was a publisher of the local newspaper. And I held that job I worked for the newspaper for about 32 years. And in that position, that gave me a unique perspective of our community, because it's not just one thing. I was always involved with the chamber in some way, as a board level, as a committee level. I was on the DEP board, when it was being founded and everything. And I learned early on that the experience that you have working with these, first of all, covering it as a news reporter, and then eventually moving it into, my role as public, as a chamber director. It struck me how well everybody worked together. When I'm covering the city and I see the city's things, like I cover the school district and I see what the schools, I learned very quickly that it was more than just reporting the stories, but the more you got involved with the community and the more you got involved with this, the more we can get accomplished. So when the chamber president position opened up a little over almost 3 years ago, it was just a natural move for me to retire from the newspaper and become chamber president. And I love the position, and I love everything we've been doing ever since. There's my history.
So Power of Partnership is something that we wanted to talk about today. It's something that as a community we do really well. A part of that is because we leave the ego at the door and we don't bring it into the room with us, because we know that what we're working on is really important. And I think if everybody comes to the table understanding that they just want what's best for their community, it's going to be a positive experience all around. That doesn't mean it's not going to be a lot of work. We started our partnerships. We're very fortunate to have a city manager who understands that the role that we play as a city government is many times a financial role of some sort, in that when CARES funding came out, we shared that. When ARPA money came out, we sit around the table and talk as a team about how we're going to make the best use of that money. And we're always looking at, when you have one-time money like that, you're always looking at how do we create a system that has a lasting effect and isn't a short-term effect. And for us doing that, it meant going to our partners and saying, we have this money, let's talk about how we make that work. All of us are involved in a group called Thrive in our community, which is a Baldrige type program that we're working on. Our goal is to be one of the first in the nation to get this recognition, the highest recognition possible. And in that program, they talk about having all of your arrows pointed in the same direction. So if you can imagine being in a place where, the chambers go in this direction, working on something, and DEP's here, and the city's over here, and we're not talking to one another, that doesn't work. It doesn't work well. And so through Thrive, we've been able to identify what those main goals are for our community, and we're all working actively in that same direction. So now all those arrows are going in the same direction, and we're being far more successful.
That was the most frustrating thing for me, when I was covering all of these different things, was to watch that, because everybody was talking about the same thing. Everybody had the same idea. We wanted Excelsior Springs to be a better town. But here we are in our little silo over here at the chamber, and we have money, we've got this limited resource, and we want to go this direction and do that kind of stuff. And then I hear DEP doing the same thing. We're downtown here, we're doing this great thing for tourism, and we're building this up, but we've got limited resources. And that was a frustrating thing for me for many years, was seeing all of that hard work, all these hardworking people together working in different directions. So I think it took something, first for DEP, what made DEP work was, adopting a Main Street program. Once they found their path, they started that. city found its path. Molly got on board. I really saw things starting to gel with the city. And then finally, here's the chamber out here trying to do its thing. So naturally for me, when I took this position, it felt right just to say, okay, here's the direction everybody's going. It's working. Let's pool our resources. Let's make that work. So that was when I really felt like we made a turning point in our community.
It wasn't always like that. So we had fractured organizations that were competing with one another instead of working together. I will tell you that it takes getting the right people in the right positions. Lyndsey and Brian are exactly where they need to be in our community, and they are doing awesome. And they can pick the phone up and call one another. It could be 9:30 on a Saturday evening, and one of them's going, "Hey, did you know about this?" Or, "Hey, this is going on," or I'm hearing this business is coming to town," or "I'm talking to somebody about buying this business." And there's this relationship now that's been established that makes all of that work.
Yeah, I mean, I think as the Main Street program, I'm comfortable picking up the phone and calling our city manager, calling Melinda, calling our police chief, calling our fire chief. And it's just, everybody has this open line of communication that allows for us to have some of, those transparent conversations to figure out how can we do this, what's the best way, and how can we do it together. I know that sounds super easy, but I definitely think it's something that every community should strive for, to have that kind of opportunity to speak.
And I think it might be interesting just to show you some of the projects that we have done together that couldn't have happened otherwise. One of the first ones is the Hall of Waters, which when you come to the Connecting Entrepreneurial Communities Conference, you'll have an opportunity to spend some time in this building. This is an amazing, beautiful building, as you can see from the picture off my shoulder. And it sits dormant if it's not used by somebody other than the city hall or city government businesses or offices. So a number of years ago,
in 2009 was when we first executed that agreement.
So we have a public service agreement, and the Downtown Excelsior Partnership offices in the building, and they operate they will operate the visitor center. And if you want to rent the hall for a baby shower or a wedding, you go talk to them. You don't talk to the city staff. And it works really, really well. It's good.
And with that agreement, again, we go back to that monetary side of it. We're performing a service that doesn't make sense for the city. So in exchange of funding, we do that. That comes from a tax base that pays us. And the benefit of that is, while we are manning that space and keeping it open 7 days a week, it also allows for DEP to have some part-time staff to take the load off of a small organization with just one director, one full-time staff person.
And it really fulfills a need for our community, because there's such a history in Excelsior Springs, and there's a lot of tourism in Excelsior Springs. And what I was hearing, in the chamber, a lot of people come to the chamber and they say, well, this Hall of Waters, it's such a unique building. We'd love to go inside. Oh, I'm sorry, it's Saturday. It's closed. You can't do that. So this partnership has, unveiled this beautiful facility and made it available for the tourists in town when they come and visit in the Elms and stuff. So it's been a great relationship getting the visitor center up and running.
The next one we're going to talk about is, again, this was early years, but they are still readily available. If you're looking at your downtown specific, I think we all know they have some new community development block grants out specific to downtown revitalization. Well, back in 2009, 2010-ish, the city went and received a $500,000 community development block grant, which then was utilized for DEP to purchase some of our blighted properties. And at that time, we went in and we did some HVAC repairs, roof repairs, electrical infrastructure to buildings. And we essentially made these move-in ready structures that we were then able to sell to businesses. Now the image you see here is now home to our community theater with those community development block grant funds. We invested $75,000 in improvements. We turned around and sold the building for $75,000. Those then rolled into a revolving loan fund so that we continue to offer low interest loans to small businesses, because sometimes getting loans for those people are a bit difficult. Melinda touched on this, and while we all know CARES Act funding is gone and past, I don't want us to think of this as one-time printed fake money. At any point in time, these kinds of programs could be built into a city's budget as a line item. If it's a project that needs to be supported, or a mission or a belief that you support in. But we were fortunate with CARES Act funding that Molly, our city manager, and Melinda came to both the chamber organization and DEP and said, how can we help you? You know, everything's shuttered at this point. What can we do? Show us your losses, show us what you're not able to do, and show us how you're going to support the businesses of Excelsior Springs by us entering into these agreements. So we were able to offer free advertising space to any business that wanted listed on that service. We offered like 50% off discounted print marketing that allowed us to get back out there and say, we're still open for business, come see us. And I believe that it also supported some event revenue losses.
It did. It also purchased like our hand washing stations that we now use at our festivals, so that if you're at a festival, there's a hand washing station readily available, so you can, you know, just things that CARES funding could be used for. I think we may have purchased some of the cleaners and such that we needed to use on the trolleys. Yeah. And so we just said, what is the need? How do we answer that need? We do a lot of joint grant writing as well, and see a value from that too. So make sure you're having those conversations with your city government and creating that relationship so you can have that conversation when the time comes.
I think it's safe to say I'm the numbers geek in this community.
Very much so.
I like those. And so I really, really wanted access to Placer AI. I keep thinking if I pitch them, maybe they'll give me a price break. That hasn't happened yet. But it's a pretty, hefty subscription price. So the city entered into an economic development agreement with DEP that said we will pay a portion for you to have this service under the agreement that when we need reports pulled outside of downtown, you're willing to do that. So we've used that to help establish the West Side CID that Brian's going to talk about a little bit later today, to showcase where our consumers are coming from, which ones are from our zip code, which ones are from outside of that. We used it to secure grant funding for a bridge replacement in our community. We've done several traffic point stops, and we use it heavily in downtown because we are extremely tourism focused with the Elms Hotel and Spa being here. So it's been a great asset to have.
And festivals and event support. Every community I know has festivals, and we're no exception with Waterfest. We have annual festival every June, and we celebrate our mineral water heritage. And that's where the city and chamber partnership have really come together, and our partnership has allowed this festival to grow substantially over the years with this partnership and with this cooperative agreement and everything that we have. Because anytime I need something, if I need something downtown, streets closed, I need support from police and fire for parade management, and just so much more, even the infrastructure. When you're putting a festival to this size together and you need something from Public Works, you need water, the fire department comes involved. I've never seen, something as successful as the partnership with the community, the police department, all the departments. They're just so easy to work with. I know there's a lot of communities that sometimes have a strained relationship with their city leaders. I think that's the first thing you need to try to work on and try to overcome. And I think the answer to that is just be at the table. Go to the city council meeting. If they have a work session, just meet these people, sit down there, hear the problems that they're facing. You'll find out that they're the same problems that you're facing. And when you're sitting there and you're trying to solve the problems together, you find out you're not really against each other. You're really working together on things. Once you have that relationship and then you want to do an event or a festival and you need somebody to help put road barricades up, or you need somebody to help, hey, I need more electricity on this block for these vendors and stuff. It's just so easy to work with them. And I don't think our festivals would be the size they are or the success they are if we didn't have those kind of relationships.
And I think the big thing, I echo Brian wholeheartedly, but the big thing that I think everybody should hear, our city doesn't charge us for those services.
Right.
They understand that these events are creating a place in our community that people want to be a part of, and then that's increasing our sales base. So they're just doing that as good stewards of our program.
Yeah. So, and we have a lot of festivals in Excelsior Springs. There's a lot of activity going on. A lot of it is due to Lyndsey and her Joel with the downtown group. We understand that tourism is such a large component for Excelsior Springs revenue. And so again, this partnership, instead of us, there used to be times in the past we tried to hold festivals like on top of each other and be fighting against each other and fighting for the revenue and that kind of stuff. And we learned early on, if we want to be this successful, if we want to have this many activities, we got a community calendar. We communicate with each other. We talk to all the groups, the theater group that has their live shows. They've learned not to try to have an event when we're having a festival. Lyndsey runs the barbecue contest every August. She's Miss Christmas, everything, all things Christmas, Excelsior Springs, that's through DEP and stuff. And we have a lot going on, but we've learned that we don't have to compete. We can work together, and we fill the calendar and the experience. When you come to Excelsior Springs, whatever the event is, you're going to have a good experience, and you see that because of our partnerships.
This is a big one for me. I don't know that it's very nice that the city offers it to me, but I included this one to share the benefit of it, but also for any community that's thinking of joining the Main Street approach or trying to figure out how does this financially make sense. Well, I have an office space and storage within the city's building. We are completely separate, but I have a box. I have 2 different locations. They allow me to store things, and that saves ballpark $20,000 just in rent and utilities a year alone that I'm able to provide to our small businesses and programming and funding and in grants. So I urge people to look at that model if it's something that could work for your community, and it also keeps that office space off of your first floor, excuse me.
Another example of our partnerships is Excelsior Springs. We talked about grant writing earlier, and because of the efforts of a group of core people that are just excellent grant writers, and they just write grants for everything, and it's a numbers game, we were able to secure some large funding from was it federal?
It's a federal transportation grant with the earmark, it's over $32 million.
Over $32 million, and one of the requirements was that the city match those funds upwards of, I think it was $6 million. And of course that's something that's not in any small business, any small town's city budget and stuff. So that's where we partnered with the chamber. We came to the chamber and we got the idea of beginning the West Side CID for a couple of reasons. First of all, that would help generate a 1 cent sales tax, which would help the chamber match $4 million. We're going to get $4 million to help. And so now the city's matching funds are $2 million. In order for us as a collective, as a community, to get over $32 million for infrastructure, street repairs, and major improvements, infrastructure, sidewalks, street improvements, landscaping improvements that alone we never, ever would have been able to reach that level. And so what we're going to see up on the west side is some very major improvements. That's a side of the community that's it's the newest part of our community, but it was there's not a lot of walkability to it. There's a lot of entryways. There's a lot of traffic. With the growth out there, there's a lot more traffic than there used to be. So we've got some growing pains out there that we're working through. That this CID and this money is going to help us with with sidewalks, stormwater retention, landscaping, entryway improvements that we're all very excited about.
And a CID is a community improvement district. So it has to be voted on by the people within the district, and the funds can only be expended inside that district boundary. And for us, that district boundary is large enough to include Walmart and goes almost to close to our downtown, and is a funding source. Lyndsey also has a community improvement district in downtown, and hers is used for marketing dollars. So there are certain things you can use those funds for. I would encourage you to find out a little bit more about that if you think it might work in your own community.
But it's really great to see that as we were developing that CID, be out there on the west side talking to those businesses. And there's, I think, complete in that particular boundary, there's close to 89 businesses up there. And, you know, the process took quite a while to get to the signing and the implementation of it. But it was very nice to be out there talking to them. And to see that community unity with the businesses, how they all saw the same vision. They were all impressed with the amount of money that we were able to secure. So it was very inspiring to be, involved with that and to see that get launched.
And that's another partnership, because as we were talking about putting the CID together, we had to sell the idea to the businesses. And using Lyndsey to run a Placer AI report, we were able to say, look, this percent of the population, or this percent of the dollars that we are collecting out here are coming from outside our community. So thank you, Liberty, Missouri. Thank you, Kearney. Thank you, Richmond. Thank you, Lawson. You're helping to pay for this when you use your sales tax, when you spend your sales tax dollars within that district.
That's, if you're familiar with Excelsior Springs, we have topography issues, because of course we have the historic part of downtown, and then we have the west side where a lot of the residents are. There's a connectivity issue as far as sidewalks and stuff like that, and that's been a problem that we've been talking about for a long time. And what I think was fun in our conversations was how we're able to kind of solve that problem with sidewalks and everything. So, and then to get the grant funds to help us, that's just forwarding along a project that we probably never, it would have taken decades to probably get to this level. So,
we don't have issues. We have uniqueness.
Uniqueness, yes. That's one of our unique qualities. So, yes.
Park development and maintenance. So I can't say enough good things about our Excelsior Springs Parks and Recreation Department. They're committed to installing parks within 2 miles of every residential, a 10-minute walk of every residential location we have in our community. But in downtown, we wanted to create beautiful green spaces and spaces that were just green, where maybe, properties had been lost and it was vacant lots. And so this was a very, very ugly space in this image. But it was, how do we do this? This is a privately owned land. DP doesn't own a lawnmower, nor do we want to. How are we going to get a water source and electrical there? So we all came to the table. DEP secured a lease with the private owner of the facility for us to have it for, I think it was 32 years. The city agreed to put in the electrical and water infrastructure. We fundraised to build it, and then Parks and Rec now maintains it. So that's just a whole bunch of partnerships and everybody having a seat at the table to say, yes, let's do this. What I have learned is building parks on private land with city partners is far easier than building parks on city-owned land. But we're working through that and being partners in that situation. You don't get to be a general contractor on city-owned land like you can be on private-owned land. And we've learned that. So we're working through it, and we have some more green spaces. It would be lovely if we could break ground before September and October, but I'm not going to promise that just yet.
We got it.
We're also fortunate, as Brian said, Miss Christmas. Yay. Usually by September, I'm ready for Christmas to be over, but we are what I call a little bit Christmas crazy in this town for being, population of 10, 11,000. And we have this lane of lights that is hosted on Lover's Lane. And you can see an image of that here. It's a lot of large items. It's all done with volunteer labor to go up and down each year. It's about $1,000 of volunteer labor, but we need a place to store all of this equipment. And we had a former firehouse that was outgrown and then left vacant, owned by the city. And so we've entered into a contractual agreement with them to be able to store all community related items in that space in exchange for putting pole mount displays during the holiday season throughout downtown. And then with the Lane of Lights, we have a different group in the community host each evening, and they get 50% of the donations received from that night. So we're injecting about $15,000 back into other community organizations each Christmas season.
So the city took a set of dollars. We spend about $30,000 annually. We have a brand new community foundation, and those dollars now are transferred into that community foundation. We started this process because we grew tired of, not tired, it's the wrong word. We grew weary of having individuals come in week after week after week asking the city for funds for their big events. So I'm going to do this murder mystery dinner, and I need you to sponsor that. And the museum's going to have their annual dinner, and they need you to sponsor that. And the hospital gala is going on, and could you do this? And so now, one time a year, and Lyndsey helped write all of this up, but one time a year, we offer an opportunity for people to write grants, and then we select grants that we will fund. And no one organization can take all of the dollars. As a matter of fact, I don't think you can have more than
50%. One organization can't have more than 50% of the funds.
And so we have, through this process, funded Waterfest or the trolleys or
marketing,
the farmers markets. Yeah, but just a whole plethora of things. Two of our biggest grant recipients are obviously right here at the table with us. But we have other individuals and organizations actually that are writing grants and asking. Yeah, the museum asked for, I believe it was $10,000 so that they could put some awnings out and replace some window covering that allowed them to be more museum quality and protect the assets inside. So there are a number of those different types of things that we've done.
I think as a Main Street program with a small budget who could never pay for redoing an entire downtown streetscape, it's easy to say, do this, do this, do this. But we have a city manager who's forward thinking enough that said, that's great. I'd love to do a streetscape for you and go find those funds. But to do it, I need the study and I need the visuals. So if you take care of that piece of it, we'll do the rest. And so we went out and hired a landscape architect to come in. We have now a complete streetscape design with a cost estimate associated with that. We have applied for one grant. Unfortunately, we were not selected, but we're not done looking. So what we're trying to show there is, rather than just saying, we want this, we want this, we want this, have those shovel-ready plans on the table you can pull off when the funding may become available. So plan ahead and be ready to be a partner in those improvements that are going to happen.
And that's what I like about the conversation that we're having here. Because I know a lot of communities, they might be sitting around their table and they come up with an idea and they go to the city and they just make the ask and they just ask for the money, and then the city says no, and you're done. You think, oh, well, I can't work with the city. They don't, they're not on board. But because we're constantly together and we're constantly talking and we're constantly having these kind of roundtable discussions, and we learn what the city's working on, they learn what we're working on. Eventually you line up. Eventually you kind of hear each other's story. You say, okay, let's not just shut each other down, but let's really truly put our brains together and brainstorm. And it took a while. We didn't get there immediately, but I found, just the consistently of being there, being interested, listening, you learn a lot, and you learn about the operations of a city. You understand how they work. You understand where the funding comes from. And the same with DEP and the same with the chamber, and because we have such a close relationship just from just from these constant conversations, that we're able to have this level of conversation now and do this level of development and growth.
A big part of what we do is we also look for relationships outside of our community. And we did that recently when our community floods often. And so yeah, our community floods. And so during the CARES funding, we went to, we're in two counties, Clay and Ray. We went to Clay County and said, hey, we'd like some money. They gave us $350,000 to do a floodway study plan, greenway study plan, just to look and see what we needed to do. And during that time, as our study was getting completed, a call for projects came out, and we had a project ready. And so we received $3.4 million because we had a project ready, because we had created that relationship and said, here's what we're going to do. Just like Lyndsey's streetscape plan, we have it ready. So when somebody comes up and says, hey, there's all of this money available, we're ready to go after those dollars, and we're always proactively looking for those.
Yeah. Again, this says ARPA facade grant program. You can remove ARPA and just have it as a general line item. The city can't give grants, or I mean, they can. It's just they don't want to be that person. So granted, it was ARPA money, but they entered into another contractual agreement with DEP. They gave us $50,000 to administer a facade grant program. We went out, we said, we're giving $5,000 grants for facade improvements to your buildings. This is the application deadline. Bring them to us. We had $64,000 of grant requests received. We funded 57,000 of those. So we took the city's 50,000. We took our 7,000 out of our own general fund budget. And within 18 months, we saw $57,000 of improvements to the facades of downtown buildings. This was awnings, this was tuck pointing, this was paint, this was signage. I mean, it was a noticeable impact in a very short period of time.
And it really brought a level of pride throughout the downtown area when businesses who didn't before have the funds and the resources to do that now have those resources. Now they're invested in their community. They feel good about their building. They feel good. Their neighbors feel good. And so that brought a unity to the businesses as well. So it's a really great program, and it really brings everybody together. Always. Okay.
Yeah.
So the chamber manages the Excelsior Springs trolleys. I think it was 2014 we purchased our first trolley, and when we did that, the guy said, you're not going to have one trolley, you're going to grow, and he's true. He was right, and we now have 3 vehicles in our service. And there was an opportunity for some growth and for another one. And the chamber at the time did not have the resources to purchase a trolley, but we needed it. And that's where the partnership with the city came in. And again, with grant funding available, we were able, with a partnership with the city, we were able to make a purchase of a trolley. This here's Big Red. This is our newest one. But in addition to financial partnerships, there's also time use partnerships. So the city also now has, an allocated amount of hours that they can use the trolley for whatever event they are. Parks and Recs can use it. Police use it every Christmas for Shop with a Cop. And so again, this partnership now, and DEP with DEP events, we use the trolley, driving around for chocolate tours and the events downtown and stuff. So again, this is another example that by ourselves, we would not have been able to purchase this trolley and been in this business if it weren't for the relationships here at the table.
And when you come to the CEC conference, you'll have an opportunity to ride in the trolleys.
You will.
Really quick, same concept with the streetscape. We need better wayfinding signage through our district because our topography is unique. Mm-hmm. So we need to help people get through town. We, DP, paid to have a wayfinding study done through a separate grant fund that we had available. And now the city has awarded us $50,000 of their ARPA funds. We've received another $15,000 from the state of Missouri, as well as our CID. And we're going to be able to knock out over half of our total wayfinding project for the downtown. And Brian, with his West Side CID, will be able to continue that on throughout the rest of the community. Yeah. So we can get people from one side to the other effectively.
With a unified look. Some of the design elements we're using on the west side, we want to tie to design elements that are being used downtown. So that Excelsior Springs is one unique, community throughout.
This one will go really fast. So we still have some ARPA funding projects out there to be done. And there was, I'm going to make up a number, but I want to say it was like $160,000 that was going to get divided up between the two of our organizations for programming. And we said, just issue it to one of us and we'll do the projects together. So we have $160,000 that was issued to DEP, but it's ours. And we're adding permanent electrical infrastructure throughout our downtown to better support our festivals and events. We are doing a power extension in Lover's Lane to continue to expand upon our Christmas season. That's going to continue to pay for our Placer AI subscription. And there's one more thing in there that we're doing. Wayfinding. So we're really excited about that partnership and that money being given to our organizations and the trust that the city has to give it to us to fulfill the requirements of the programming it's been established for.
Yeah. So I think the most important thing you can take away from today is you have to have the right partners in the room and at the table, and you have to leave the ego at the door, because none of this works if everybody is concerned about who's going to get the credit. We are incredibly fortunate to have a city manager, city council members, DEP and chamber board members, and a community that just says, we're just here to get the work done. We just want to be a better community. And so we're here to do what's necessary. We are definitely a roll your sleeves up and get to work community. I have worked in several communities, and I will tell you that the piece that stands out most about Excelsior Springs is that when there is work to be done, they will roll their sleeves up and find a way to do that. I used to tell people that we raised $100,000 in a year drinking beer on Thursday nights through a celebrity bartender event that was done by one of our businesses. So we will find a way to make things happen. That's the attitude you have to look for as a community when you're moving forward and trying to do something similar to what we're doing. It's got to be roll my sleeves up, and I don't care who gets the credit. We're all going to be better for this at the end. I think there's time for questions now.
Wonderful. You guys have set us off to such a great start. This is amazing. Thank you so much. So we have come to a spot in our webinars where we like to invite our participants to come off mute, turn your cameras on, and ask questions. And if you don't have any specific questions, maybe you can tell Lyndsey, Brian, and Melinda what you enjoyed about their presentation, or a specific topic or takeaway. We'll see if anyone has one, because I have several.
Yeah, I believe Dave's with the MU Extension Neighborhoods.
And
he works very closely with Laura in my office on neighborhoods. Yeah. The question was, has it always been this way? Absolutely not. Nope. I would tell you, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I say the Chamber of Commerce and DEP did not get along before Brian got to the table. Yeah. There was an ego in the room that was worried about who was getting the credit. And when that could change, that changed everything.
There's a lot of similarities in the design of the chamber and DEP. There's a lot of similarities, and we're all on this. We all have the same goals. We want to improve economic development within our community. We all wanted growth, tourism to grow. And then by design, the chamber and DEP both needed fundraising to sustain themselves. So there was a long time when I felt like we were stepping on each other's toes, or me against, or the chamber against DEP and that kind of stuff. Especially, the chamber's been around for a long time, and DEP was necessary for the downtown with all the programs that Lyndsey mentioned. These buildings were falling apart. Most of them were empty, and people didn't have the resources to renovate them and to bring their businesses in. And DEP, started out, it was a couple of the downtown business owners got together around the table, grassroots. They said, let's work together. But even then, they started they had their own agenda. They wanted their own thing. And then when the Main Street program got involved and taught them to find the right direction, DEP started to thrive. And that really took off. And at that point, it became like competition to the chamber. That's how the chamber saw it. It's like, oh, well, we were here first, and now here comes DEP, and they're successful because they've got a working model. And that created a friction for a long time. But again, my perspective through the years was, it wasn't about, what chair am I sitting in? Are we am I a newspaper publisher, or am I a chamber director, or am I a DEP director, or whatever? We all want the same thing. And so it finally took just a lot of just being together, cooperating, talking to each other. We could have been, and for years we were mad at each other. We wouldn't talk to each other. We
didn't sit at the same table.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I mean, we might try, but it was not successful. We sit at the same table now and have open conversations and dialogue. Sometimes we get together and talk for an hour and a half and accomplish nothing, but we learned a lot while we were having those conversations with each other.
So there are two things to know. Every Thursday at 1:30, you can find the three of us and others in our community, Courtney, Cole, Sonia Morgan, the city manager, and others who will come to other trails, and you can come in and talk to us about anything. So somebody came recently, I want to do a plein air event. And so we were like, oh, let's see how to make that happen and have it happen at the CEC conference. That David asked us how we create that culture. I really think Communities of Excellence was one of the ways that we started to get that to happen. We found places we could all come together and support the same thing. And from that, we built stronger relationships.
We also don't like we don't sleep very much.
No, I'm just saying, great example. Last time I was in Excelsior Springs was 25 years ago with Missouri Preservation. They had a conference there, and so I really am looking forward to coming back and seeing the changes.
So, Melinda, you had mentioned Communities of Excellence, and I know where I'm from in Northwest Missouri, we have a similar group, Maximize Northwest Missouri, and we have a couple people, I think, on the call today that are part of that effort in Northwest Missouri. Can you, you've been around for a while, can you tell us what maybe one of your struggles was with starting that process in Communities of Excellence?
I think getting everybody in the same room and agreeing on the topics. And again, let it go of the ego. So health and wellness is an issue for us. We have a higher probability of dying younger than anywhere else in our county. So we need to work on that. And so not to get your back up when somebody says, well, we aren't very healthy here. You know, the parks director can't be like, well, I give them plenty of opportunities. We got to let all that go and just talk about, let's focus on finding the solution and not who we're going to blame. And I think that getting everybody at the table to agree on those topics, you can have a lot of topics. We have 4 or 5, and they're very broad topics: economic vitality, health and wellness, housing, and then from those groups, and we form up all of those groups. It has helped us to be better partners and to work together. It's taught us how to work together.
And the hard thing about getting around the table for the first time is it's hard to not get feelings hurt because, things aren't working. We all agree that things aren't working and we're getting a bad score in this area and stuff. And when you start talking about it, it's hard to say, okay, we're failing in this area. And if that's the area you're in, it's hard not to take that personally and to get hurt. So, I think the thing is when you come to the table, is you've got to really have these guidelines that, hey, look, it's not personal. We're not attacking. But we've got to talk about some hard subjects. There are some hard topics out there to talk about that a lot of people are afraid to even get started. You've got to have a structure that you're able to talk about it, get over the feelings, just put the egos aside again, and just be willing to know that we're really not attacking anyone. We're just trying to solve the problem.
I agree 100%. So thank you for that. Are there other questions? I think, Charles, you came off mute.
Yeah, thank you. I believe you have a farmer's market in your community as well, right? Yes. What kind of connections or what kind of things have you done to partner the farmer's market with the community?
Well, the community, that's under the Chamber of Commerce. We've been hit and miss with the farmers market for a long time. We've had farmers markets start up and become
historically, it was a DEP.
That's true. Yes.
And
yes.
we killed it because it didn't make sense. Now they're working to reimagine that.
Right, and it takes the right people at the table. Again, the person that had DEP's farmers market he loved farmers markets, and that's what he wanted to do. And then when you have personnel changes, and then an employee comes in, and that employee may not be passionate about a farmer's market, you're not going to get the same results. And so the first thing is to get the right people at the table, which we do. We have a director now, Tammy Murphy, very passionate about this. And then again, how do you fund a farmer's market when it's first starting? It's a hard thing to get launched and to get going, to get a community behind. And we're going into our fourth year, I believe, and it hasn't been. I think out of the 4 years, I think we've had to pick a new location. I think all 4 years. There's still, but with each year, it's a huge learning curve. I mean, we got a good group of people around there. They listen to the vendors. They listen to what the vendors want. They listen to the community. This is what the community wants. They've got programs in place that help SNAP, EBT. They've got those programs in place.
And it grew out of the communities of excellence. We need to offer a good food source downtown. For our downtown is in the highest poverty area of our community. We have some of our housing projects in this area. So and we don't have a grocery store within a mile. So this is the right place to do the farmers market. So our hospital came forward and went after a grant.
Huge part.
So the hospital went after a grant for us. Our hospital CEO is a very active member of the farmers market. The chamber manages that part of the program and has that employee. And
Community center is a good partner.
Yeah, yes. Community center is a good partner. Actually, our farmers market personnel works with the community center, so just give a little bit of leeway there. And they have been meeting in our office or in our parking lot or in a parking lot for another not-for-profit downtown. So everybody came to the table because they saw it as useful, but it really takes it takes a lot of work.
It does. Thanks for sharing. Appreciate it.
So I am very interested in how you put together your grant writing team. That is not something a lot of cities have. It's just, from this entity, I'm going to write a grant, and I'm from this entity. Can you share a little bit of your secrets on how that came about?
I think our biggest secret is that our city manager used to be the small cities grant writer for Mid-America Regional Council and had a business that did this. So she's very, very well versed in how to write grants. We had a previous council member who was passionate about making things better in the community, that was always working towards helping us write those grants. She's a wordsmith. Courtney Cole with Excelsior Citizen assist us a great deal. She also used to write grants for the Good Samaritan Center. So we found people in our community that were really good with words, knew about our projects, and we have people move in and out of our committee. And it's not really even a committee. It's just, if you want to have coffee at 1:30 on Tuesday, you can find us at other trails. And we have people who walk in and out all the time to meet with us on any number of issues. But if we're working on a grant, nobody owns the grant. Sonia Morgan, who used to be a council member, may say, I've got the history piece of that, so let me take a stab at that and write it, and then she'll send it out to everybody. Hey, I need some specific data. That's Lyndsey. Yeah. And so Lyndsey will pull that together for us. So it's really about finding people who have a skill that you might need. So writing, budgeting. You've got to have a not-for-profit that has a UEI, and you can't wait till the last minute to do that. And that's a government issue for grants. Just learned that. So and I will tell you just one quick story about how this works. So we had somebody who wanted to do a plein air event in our community, and she was going to apply for a grant. Actually, our cultural guild was going to apply for this $50,000 grant. And she gets to 2 or 3 days before the grant's due, and she said, "What's the UEI number?" And we're all like, "Oh, you have to have a UEI number, and it takes a little bit of time to put that together, and you have to get it from the federal government." And she was like, "Well, I guess I'm dead in the water." And Lyndsey, it was a Tuesday afternoon meeting, and we're all sitting there, and Lyndsey goes, "Well, not necessarily, because I think," she knew she had a UEI number. She's like, "I think we could apply for that through our organization, and here's how we could do that." And we sat there and worked the whole thing out inside of that 30 minutes. And she walked away going, wow, they actually want to work with me to make this happen, and they see value. Ultimately, she was able to get her own UEI number and do it herself, but she at least found that there were partners there that were willing to work with her. And I will tell you, the one thing that none of us have mentioned that is essential in all of this is sharing the good news out. And we have a really, really good partner in Excelsior Citizen in our community. The Excelsior Citizen is a local online service. Courtney Cole's on this on the conference call today, and she's on our committee, and she helps us with our grant writing. And she's doing it because she's a hometown kid that believes in pushing our community out and talking about all the great things that are happening in our community. And you definitely need to have that person at the table as well. We have a local paper as well. And so we have a couple of different sources. But what Courtney does for us is she pushes the good news regionally and nationally for us.
Well, I am really excited. A few of us are going to get to come to one of those Tuesday afternoon meetings with you all in a few weeks. And I am super excited to see how the buzz works in Excelsior Springs at a Tuesday afternoon meeting at the coffee shop. So we are almost out of time. So I just want to wrap up, and I want to thank the three of you, Melinda, Lyndsey, and Brian, for sharing your afternoon with us on the first Friday. We are super excited to come to Excelsior Springs, not only in a couple weeks, but also in September, and see what you've got for us and how we can make the CEC the best one yet. So
Awesome.
Our next webinar will be Friday, March 7th. It's going to be the same Zoom link. It's going to be the same time. So we have collaborators on our March 7th webinar from the city of Maryville. They come from the city, the downtown Maryville, similar to Lyndsey's organization, as well as Northwest Missouri State University. And they're going to share with us how they have collaborated to achieve multiple projects in their downtown Maryville community with those three partners at the table. And this is going to include one of my favorite Maryville projects, which is their 4th Street entrance to the university from their downtown. So they'll show some before and after pictures during that webinar, and we're super excited to see them both. So we hope that you will all join us next month for our webinar, and we will hope you have a good weekend. So thank you so much, everyone.
And go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs. Yes, go Chiefs.